This project is truly unique. To have the year-long project and to have artists working in a dedicated time across the different points of public outcomes and intersections to delve deeper into their practice is a truly unique project. When we selected the artists to be involved in the project, the first priority was that they would be practicing South Australian artists of some renown and with an established practice. We also wanted artists that were working already within those intersections of science, art and technology. And we had the 4 artists featured just came to mind as standouts. Every breath we take is a moment of uncertainty, so we were really interested in going deeper into those broader concepts and themes, but also the different fields of practice to coach the artists involved to be safe in that kind of experimental workshop, process-driven space as well. That is a definite skill for people to have across all different generations, how to think differently and in multidisciplinary ways, and that problem solving and that curiosity, because we are in uncertain times, and for people to be able to have the thinking skills to navigate these uncertain times, I think this project really leads beautifully into that.
It's been incredible to engage with these artists and their works while they're in process. It's something about finding a work between its conception, like the idea of what it's supposed to be, and what it is aspiring to become. So it's sort of like conceptual work that is always in process, always unfinished, always going, which could be limiting, but I think is actually incredibly freeing.
I hope that they begin to understand that it's not a magical, mysterious profession, being an artist or being a scientist, that there are points where we can all come together, that this becomes a catalyst for conversation. Conversations that actually run deep, but connect with daily life. I think that's what exhibitions should be about.
I guess now that we're at the end of the project, you know, I can kind of look back in the rearview mirror and think about, you know, where I was at the beginning of the project and where I am now in my practice in material thinking. Really importantly as well, I'm focusing on the perceptual system of the viewer, and so how they are experiencing their overall work, so the apparatus and the moving image together, and that's really where the work is headed right now.
The project has continued to evolve and expand over time. As I've had collaborators come in with their own interests, they've introduced me to more experts into different fields. So there's been some transdisciplinary collaboration, there's been different processes coming into the mix and different environments, both artificial and real. And I'm really delighted to be able to show people what I've been working on with my collaborators and how the different ideas have meshed together. And I hope people can enjoy the show.
A big welcome to a partnership for uncertain times.
I think what we see in this exhibition is that continuation of process.
Maybe 6 months or so in, I decided that I could do something with electronics and have that connection to the elements as well. I think just being able to spend time, walking on country with elders, and with community, and looking at the ways in which we can care for the land. Those moments are the most poignant for me.
Personally, this journey has been very enlightening, but also it's given me time to reflect and step back. Being able to work with the precision fabricators at ANF, being able to work with the physicists in the photonics lab, that just has meant that I can really closely and specifically observe things and look at things. So my project, Perceptual Illusions, is really an inquiry into how we perceive a depth of field in materially generated moving images. The theme of my project, it intertwines optics, media archaeology, digital fabrication, and the human perceptual system to explore this idea of how a lot of what we see in today's world is mediated through some form of optical technology. For example, the screen in our phones. That technology is invisibly mediating our kind of perceptual gaze and how we're engaging with the image. So the background to my project, it kind of merges two pathways in my practice that I've been looking at for quite a while. So the first one relates to really engaging with this idea of optical mechanics. So say if you were to get a film strip and run it through an optical system in front of our eye, if you just ran it straight through, you get a blurred image. So you always have to momentarily freeze the image frame. So I've been using my background as a glassmaker to kind of understand how light passes through an object to create an image with depth of field, and also exploring different focal planes. Those two things, I've kind of brought them together to see if I can create a moving image exploring depth of field. So this cross-disciplinary practice has really, I guess, in a way transformed my practice. So instead of being located specifically in my glass studio, it's almost like I have a nomadic studio and I go from lab to lab. But to do that, it means traversing these traditional boundaries of art and craft and moving, kind of continuously moving across optics and engineering. And that's now actually physically become my practice.
The title of my work is Never Too Hot, and the overarching theme is relearning traditional land management practices. It's about finding ways to enact culture and to enable culture, and I'm looking at that through the lens of fire and sound. So I've been working with Ghana fire management team for a while now, and I've really wanted to bring these sort of practices into my art. I'm very much looking at traditional science and Western science, how those two meet, the different knowledge system. But that doesn't mean it's not scientific. I wanted to explore these ways of how those two different knowledge systems interact. How can I look at technology, sound technology specifically, analog synthesis, thermoelectric generators, looking at ways of utilizing Western science and these kind of different chemical and physical processes. How do I bring fire into an artwork? How do I bring the elements of fire, the way that fire looks, the way the fire behaves, the way that fire interacts with different materials, different types of wood, different thicknesses, grasses, leaves, barks, the temperature of the fire.
The title of the project is The Taken Path. This is kind of a speculative, open-ended, durational project. It all hinges on a very poetic idea. What if I were to walk the same path once a month over a year and film the journey? Think about how you observe a path that you travel every day that's so familiar to you that it's become invisible. The path that bisects the estate that goes from the west right up through to the east, this long path with a house in the middle, traverses a number of different kinds of landscapes. Landscapes that are highly managed and landscapes that are more unstructured. We've got a rim of endangered grey box grassy woodland. And then there's this kind of big area that I call crunchy zone, because in summer the sound of your footfalls on that bit of land is absolutely audible. It's been extraordinary, particularly the conceptual kind of unfolding, things we don't notice in our everyday lives. What's incredibly important to this process for me is collaboration. I'm collaborating with Ian Gibbons, an emeritus professor of anatomy and a neuroscientist who's now a renowned video poet. So he brings some incredible kind of insights into this project. That process for me is really important, to actually cross disciplines, cross fields of knowledge. Working across disciplines has given me insight into how I can bring other opinions, other ways of seeing, connecting our languages together so we see something anew. If we all just step back from the tenets of the tradition embedded in our disciplines, that maybe we'll begin to see things differently, and maybe we can come up with new solutions to achieving a better balance with the natural world.
The more voices that you're open to, the more curious you are, the more trails that you're willing to follow, the more open you are to other people's ideas, you can create richer work. The title of my work is Mesh Interspecies Empathy. Uncertainty evokes new questions in times of crisis. I work with living things, and living things require support systems. And I'm interested in evoking empathy with life in an era in which anthropocentric practices have caused disruption. I think that we have a responsibility for our actions, and when we manipulate life, or when we, through technology, we cause disruptions to life, we have a responsibility. So these are the types of wounds that I'm speaking about. I have actually piggybacked onto my 2020 ANAT Synapse residency, in which I worked with seaweed biopolymers to produce plastic alternatives, and brought in a collaborator, M. Dudek, who is a religious scholar, performance artist, religious myth maker, and is interested in science fictive stories. Instead of just looking to produce a eco-friendly plastic, we looked at more medical applications. So there was this mesh of ideas, and the art project fed it into the science at the lab, and it was very interesting because during the collaboration, ideas that maybe we wouldn't have come up on our own were able to happen.
I'm constantly reviewing my own process as an artist. What's my role? Am I an arts activist? Are we all activists? And I actually feel more and more that we are.
You ask questions of the work, you know, and you try and think of other viewpoints.
Is the uncertainty of creative practice anti-capitalist?
Capitalism, to me, is uncertainty. Where are we going in this neo-capitalist context? We're going nowhere, and we're going nowhere pretty fast.
Donna Haraway talks of staying with the trouble. What does this look like within creative practice?
Not holding on to your knowledge as being an end point. It's only the beginning. If you think you know something, it's only the beginning. It's not a full stop.
I think one of the great things in common between artists and scientists is that you actually enjoy working in that area of uncertainty, trying to navigate it and work out where its boundaries are.
How do you sift through all that subject matter and make what you make? The absolutely true and honest answer to that is, I don't know. And that is the hardest thing to say to a young artist, because they always think that that path is a certain path, and it's actually not. I think as I get older, I feel more and more uncertain in the beginning of a project than I ever have.
I think if there's not uncertainty in the project that you're doing, you're not trying hard enough.
So tell us a bit about those communication styles and barriers and the ways that you've worked in that kind of environment in your collaborations.
Everyone talks about learning a new language, and it is a new language. We explain what does that mean to a scientist and what does that mean to an artist, and it can mean totally different things.
The shared complementary viewpoints was a key part of it. But the other collaborator is the actual place itself. And that's really, really important. I mean, we wouldn't have a project if it weren't for Carrick Hill. The idea of opening up the process behind it, I think people can learn a lot more about not only about other people, about how the world works by understanding the process which goes into making and creating things.
I would hope that when people enter the space this evening, they would be curious about the work. Because it is dark, it really kind of creates almost a still space or a quiet space that the viewer can enter and then engage with the kind of maybe wonder or mysteriousness of the work.
I think the thing that stood out for me the most was that I allowed for an open-ended process, and although it could be difficult at times, nerve-wracking, it seems to have all come together.
Before I started this project, I didn't really think about collaboration in non-traditional ways. Through collaboration with country, walking, feeling the country, and just trying to reconnect more with that stuff.
It's been very interesting actually coming to this point where we're showing work it actually represents a process rather than a finished outcome, but we're in a white cube kind of space. It's not about having a fixed idea about an outcome, and you want to draw people into that questioning to form new questions, and I think that's what we've achieved with this. That understanding for me has been profound.